Welcome to the Cross Canada Spotlight. I'm Mike Arsenault. Every week we take a look at a handful of the most interesting and entertaining stories produced across the Global News Network. First up is an incredible reunion. 6 years ago, a doctor suffered a cardiac arrest on a softball field. She was without a pulse for 15 minutes and then brought back to life by two paramedics. And she recently had a chance to thank the two men in person.
Some people are happy to get their 15 minutes of fame. Grażyna Burek considers herself much luckier. She was revived after 15 minutes of being clinically dead.
I don't have a lot of memory of the event, so it's scary to think about the situation, but I think you just have to kind of move forward. But I do make a point to celebrate my death anniversary.
She marks those death anniversaries as a reminder to appreciate life. 6 years ago, she suffered a cardiac arrest while playing softball in Calgary. Fortunately, there were bystanders who provided CPR before paramedics Jack Cochran and Richard Agnew showed up.
We had to defibrillate her one more time. We did then get a pulse back on the way to the hospital.
At the time, Burek was in her second year of medical school and is now in her last year of medical residency. As part of the program, she needs to take part in a 2-day EMS ride-along. She requested to be reunited with the two men who saved her life.
I can say thank you and tell them all these stories, but I feel like it will never, what I feel in my heart, can never be translated into words, because it's, they saved my life, literally.
This is really more likely a one-in-a-lifetime chance where you actually do get to meet the patient afterwards and see them and see how well they're doing.
Her life-changing experience in the back of an ambulance as a patient influenced Burek's choice to become a pediatric emergency physician.
You never want to be a patient, but that experience, I think, has helped me connect with my patients a lot better than I would have ever been able to prior to this.
Few people survive an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. Because of her close call, Burek discovered she has an inherited heart condition that is now treated with medication and an implanted cardiac defibrillator. Carolyn Curry de Castillo, Global News.
There were so many factors in that story that led to that incredible outcome for Grażyna. I'm sure there's some emotional turmoil after having a near-death experience. I have no idea how I would react after facing something like that. Grażyna appears to be doing really well and now paying it forward herself in the emergency room. Staying in Alberta, many people have had their weddings postponed or downsized during the pandemic. One couple worked to make the best out of an undesirable situation.
Caramel macchiato.
This may be pretty routine.
I'll just do a regular brewed coffee.
But something big is brewing.
So excited. I'm going to be walking through those doors.
It's still sinking in for Elizabeth Palmer and Cameron Nobles.
We're getting married.
Happening Saturday in this Calgary cafe.
Yeah, we're going to be having our vows here in front of the fireplace.
The scene of that magic moment 5 years ago after connecting online, meeting here for the first time.
I remember walking in and he stood up and I was like, holy crap, he's tall.
And I looked at her and said, oh my God, look how gorgeous she is.
And I think her table was somewhere here.
Not their first choice for the ceremony.
If it wasn't for COVID, we would be in Jamaica. That's where I'm from. My family is there. And we would have had it at one of the resorts.
Everything going on with COVID restrictions and stuff nowadays, it's a little trickier to have a larger venue, and we thought what better place than the very first place we met.
A dozen guests, just family and friends.
Very nice, simple ceremony.
I think it's fabulous.
This wedding planner says many couples are scaling back during the pandemic.
A lot of outdoor weddings, a lot of tented weddings, lots of backyards this year. Whatever floats their boat. I think love is love and it doesn't matter where we celebrate it.
These are our bands. I just bought my dress. He'll be in a tux. It's gonna be magical.
That's honestly really romantic. They said they needed a photographer. I dabble in photography, so I think I'm gonna take photos for them.
If it wasn't for the pandemic, we would have never thought of this idea. But I'm glad it happened the way it did because it adds more sentiment.
Gil Tucker, Global News.
Well, the silver lining for Elizabeth and Cameron and every other couple who has gotten married during the pandemic is that their ceremony will probably be even more memorable than if they had had a traditional wedding. That coffee shop will always be their spot, that's for sure. Now, it has been a very tough week in British Columbia with all the flood damage and destruction the southern part of the province is facing. People from across Canada are doing what they can to help, including one man in Ontario whose connection with the province is all about baseball.
Floodwaters ravage the Fraser Valley while search and rescue efforts continue in Abbotsford, BC. The images are hard to take.
To see the families that are struggling and losing their homes and losing their livelihoods, it's really just tough to wrap my head around right now.
Corey Eckstein's roots run deep in the Lower Mainland. He spent at least 30 years of his life living and playing baseball there.
It's tough not being on the ground there, in all honesty. I was wanting to hop on a plane and get out there.
Now living and working for the Ontario Blue Jays in Mississauga, Eckstein, a former baseball pro, is looking to give back to his hometown team, the Abbotsford Cardinals of the Premier Baseball League.
It was very panicked and scary.
Players and coaches were in the facility when floodwaters began to rise. It is now almost completely underwater.
Everyone was rushing to help, and it's really unfortunate that the waters got as high as they did because we didn't expect it to get that high.
It's almost cresting our outfield fence. It all happened within 4 hours.
There are concerns the team won't have a facility in time for next season, putting scholarships at risk.
And the baseball community across the country has really stepped up to the plate, offering not just monetary donations, but also equipment donations as well, in an effort to get that beloved baseball team back up on its feet and out on the field.
Which really in itself displays a great sense of sportsmanship in a time of need.
Thankfully, the baseball community in Canada, it's a special place, and there's been a lot of people that have reached out.
Morgan Campbell, Global News.
I still can't get over the video and images coming out of BC from the floods. I mean, it looked like there was 5 feet of water covering that baseball diamond in Abbotsford. It is going to be a long, long rebuild for the province. And you really have to feel for those players. Parts of the last 2 seasons were impacted by the pandemic, and it appears the floods will now impact a third. A lighter, happier story now from Alberta. It's about a sibling relationship that has persisted for over a century. Yes, you heard me correctly. Meet 101-year-old Rowena and 105-year-old Mildred.
A sister's bond unbreakable. This one has lasted more than a century.
Oh yeah, my sister, she's 4 years younger, but we're always very close.
Mildred Berry just turned 105. Her sister, Rowena Johnson, is 101. With the help of their daughters, they still talk almost every single day.
Is that you? That's me. I'm in the room. Huh? Yes, that's me.
Can you phone me again? Their hearing may be slipping, but the two count on these calls. Rowena lives in Winnipeg, Mildred in Edmonton.
Sometimes if I get some extra news or something in my head, I'll phone her twice. We get along very, very well. We always did.
What do you talk about?
Everything in common.
Like what?
The weather, what we did when we were growing up.
They chat about life on the farm, their chores, and their horses.
What were the names of your horses?
Babe and Doll.
The sisters last saw each other 5 years ago at Mildred's 100th birthday. They had a middle sister too, Ella. She passed away a few years ago in her 90s. Their tight family bond passed down.
It's been a generational thing, and I think it started with Grandma and Grandpa, and just that foundation they set and that example.
Even more important these past pandemic years, it's been tough for Mildred and Rowena, but they are still sharp in wit.
Talk about teasing. They'll tease one another, they'll laugh, they'll talk about the old days.
Do you love her? Do you love your sister?
Yeah, I do love my sister. Yeah, I love her. Yeah, she was a bit bossy.
They didn't like me bossing them very much, so I try to be careful.
Sisterly love 100 plus years in the making. Kendra Slagoski, Global News.
Sure, the sister's longevity is amazing, but how about Mildred seamlessly using a smartphone and a laptop? That's unbelievable. She probably has more Instagram followers than I do too. Our final story of the week is about 3 young kids with disabilities given the chance to feel some independence in specially made toy cars. Be forewarned, this one might be a tearjerker.
It's just nice to know that there's ways that the community and that charities are helping kids that, you know, can't experience things that, you know, that everyone else can.
Imagine being a child who can't play with any toys because of their health. On Friday, that changed for 3 young boys with disabilities in Regina, who now have the toy cars we all envied as kids.
Yeah. We're done.
Gifted by the Regina Rotary Club and Variety Children's Charity, these cars are custom made, specifically built to overcome the child's immobility.
Oh, it's always amazing. It's always heartwarming. And again, because most of these families, most of these children have never experienced independent movement.
For him to be able to push a button and experience motion it means so much to us, and it'll help with his motor skills and stuff, and his learning.
These electric cars run via switches and buttons with a remote control for parents. Curtis Kemick says it's nearly impossible to find toys his son can actually use.
He's never been able to move on his own will. He just would complain, and I would pick him up and carry him or something, right? But no, this is going to be a big change for him, and I don't even know how he's going to handle it. So I'm excited to get him in there and see.
The relief and happiness for all the parents and kids at Friday's presentation was palpable. Because ultimately, this isn't just a fun toy, it's a chance at independence.
This is kind of his last chance to, you know, be able to do stuff on his own, and hopefully it could lead into maybe him, you know, using his own wheelchair with a switch or something like that. I just think it's really great.
Ian Duffy, Global News.
Man, I think I've said this before, but stories like that definitely hit me different now that I'm a dad myself. And that small taste of freedom, I hope, will do wonders for those boys. That's it for the Cross Canada Spotlight this week. Be sure to watch Global News Weekend Saturday and Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. on the Global TV app.